2 men arrested after gunshots, reported on LB Scott Road, firearm recovered. Minister Melissa Gums, sports investments. Major allocation support, sports facility management. Minister of VROMI Patrice Gums. Ministry structure personnel reality. Ministry of Justice, advise motorists to exercise caution as Point Blanche prison construction begins. From the island of Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for August 27th, 2026. 2 men were arrested on Wednesday, August 26th, 2026, after police responded to reports of gunshots in the LB Scott Road area. A search of a residence, conducted with proper legal authorization, led to the recovery of a firearm. Police were called out around midday after receiving reports that shots had allegedly been fired on a property near Arts from the Hearts. Officers were also told that 2 men on a scooter had been spotted in the area shortly beforehand. When officers arrived, they found a property matching the description given to police and encountered several people on site, including 2 men who would go on to become suspects. Based on what was observed and the information gathered, the 2 men, identified by their initials RC and MNV, were arrested on suspicion of violating the firearms ordinance. The property was secured while police completed the legal steps needed to search it. Once the required authorization came through, officers searched the residence. Inside one of the bedrooms, officers found a black handgun hidden under a pile of clothing. The weapon was confiscated and will be sent for forensic examination to determine whether it's linked to the reported gunshots or any other case. Both suspects were taken to the Philipsburg police station, where they remain in custody as the investigation continues. Detectives are working to piece together exactly what happened, including how the firearm came to be at the property. Possession of an illegal firearm is a serious offense under the Firearms Ordinance and carries significant legal consequences, including arrest, prosecution, and possible imprisonment. Beyond the legal risks, illegal firearms pose a direct danger to public safety, increasing the likelihood of violence within the community. KPSM is asking anyone with information about the location of illegal weapons to come forward. Tips can be reported by calling the Philipsburg police station at +1 721 542 2222 or anonymously through the tip line at 9300. Patrice Gums, Minister of VROMI. With respect to the ministry structure and personal reality, I would like to emphasize the realities faced by the ministry. The approved formation consists of 145 positions. Currently, approximately 95 positions are filled, while roughly 50 remain vacant. You have, but in addition, 15 vacancies were filled in 2026. This means the ministry is currently operating at approximately 65% occupancy while managing critical national responsibilities, as explained to the Member of Parliament in the budget for VROMI.
With respect to the ministry's structure and personnel reality, I would like to emphasize the realities faced by the ministry. The approved formation consists of 145 positions. Currently, approximately 95 positions are filled, while roughly 50 remain vacant. We have budgeted an additional 15 vacancies to be filled during 2026. This means the ministry is currently operating at approximately 65% occupancy while managing critical national responsibilities. While budget is often viewed as key to executing the ministry's mandate, that mandate and what it entails, the execution of road projects, permit processing, etc., depends primarily on qualified capacity, that is, the people. As we seek to improve public service delivery, strengthening the ministry's human capacity, therefore, remains essential. Madam Chair, members of Parliament, The total proposed budget for VROMI in 2026 amounts to approximately 36.8 million guilders. Revenue is projected at approximately 17.6 million. The primary revenue streams include GB concession revenues, construction permit fees, leasehold, so long lease canon revenues, and inspection-related revenues. On the expenditure side, the largest allocations are directed towards operational services necessary for delivery of public infrastructure management, waste management, maintenance activities, and regulatory services. The modest increase in expenditure compared to prior years is primarily associated with personnel-related obligations, salary indexation, normal HR progression, and maintaining core service delivery. This budget does not represent expansion for expansion's sake. Rather, it reflects the cost of sustaining essential public services while gradually strengthening capacity. I also want to point out in the table, budget 2025 and 2026, you recognize what would seem like a significant reduction in revenue. What is important to actually look at is the actuals of budget 2025 versus what was budgeted. And actually what's budgeted for 2026 is more in line with the actuals of 2025 and 2024. Madam Chair, members of Parliament, I'd like to continue by providing key details regarding the infrastructure services expenditures. The large allocations are directed towards the following items, starting from the largest: solid waste collection, district cleaning, landfill operations, miscellaneous, which are a combination of all smaller operations, security services of ROMI sites and facilities like the wastewater treatment plant and the landfill, road repairs and maintenance, trench maintenance, wastewater treatment, and finally, street lighting. These services collectively account for the majority of the operational spending. To be precise, approximately 77% of the total goods and services of the ministry. The people of St. Martin rightfully inquire why road maintenance and broader infrastructure improvements continue to be a challenge despite the ministry's ongoing efforts. The reality is that the principal constraint is not the absence of plans, technical expertise, or willingness to execute. The primary challenge is the limited availability of dedicated, regular, predictable resources required to adequately maintain and upgrade national infrastructure. The amount currently budgeted for roads, road repairs, and maintenance, for example, allows the ministry to only address the most pressing needs and perform essential interventions. However, it is insufficient to comprehensively rehabilitate and sustain the entire road network at the standards our residents and visitors rightfully expect. Recognizing this structural funding challenge, the ministry has been preparing the groundwork for the establishment of the Road Fund. The objective of this fund is to create, finally, a dedicated and sustainable financing mechanism for road maintenance and rehabilitation funded through road tax revenues. A dedicated road fund will allow for long-term planning, more predictable investments, preventative maintenance, and ultimately better road conditions across the country. However, I must emphasize this is a matter that will be addressed through the future national budget in the year to come. Until such a mechanism is realized, the ministry will continue to prioritize available resources as effectively as possible, focusing on those interventions that deliver the greatest benefit to the public while maintaining critical infrastructure assets and remaining in budget. Madam Chair, members of Parliament, the proposed capital expenditure exceeds 80 million Caribbean guilders. Among the most significant requests are the GB power generation investments, Dutch Quarter Road Development Program, road paving initiatives, main road improvements, Prince Bernard upgrades, bridge upgrades, and finally, acquisition of operational equipment and vehicles.
Melissa Gums, Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. Sports investments, major allocation support, sports facility management, school sports activities, and national team development, Olympic preparation, and international participation. These investments help create opportunities for athletes while strengthening St. Martin's regional and international sporting presence. Supporting the work of the Department of Sports is the task mandated to the National Sports Institute, and it's a mountain sports federation. NSI is tasked with managing, maintaining, and developing the government's own sports facilities.
Sports investments. Major allocations support sports facility management, school sports activities, national team development, Olympic preparation, and international participation. Maybe you put on my teacher voice. Shh. These investments help create opportunities for athletes while strengthening St. Martin's regional and international sporting presence. Supporting the work of the Department of Sports are the tasks mandated to the National Sports Institute and the St. Martin Sports Federation. NSI is tasked with managing, maintaining, and developing government-owned sports facilities. These include Raoul Illich Sports Complex, Melford Hazel Complex, including tennis and basketball court, L.B. Scott Sports Auditorium, John Cooper Jose Lake Ballpark and Basketball Court, Belvedere Sport Complex, including Cruyff Court, Boardwalk Sports Park, and the St. Peter, Simpson Bay, K Bay, Cole Bay, and Dutch Quarter community basketball courts. Moving on to study financing and student support. Study financing increases by 11% due primarily to rising scholarship costs, particularly for students studying in the United States. Scholarship and grant funding totals $3.5 million. Student support services also increases, ensuring that learners receive the academic, psychosocial, and career guidance necessary for success. Moving over to education, innovation, and digital transformation. Education innovation receives a 29% increase and comes to $1.84 million. Key priorities include innovation projects, digital learning initiatives, education on the move, monitoring and evaluation systems, and future-focused policies related to AI and STEAM education. AI and STEAM education policies are being developed in collaboration with UNESCO, and we are currently in the process of conducting stakeholder consultations to ensure that the policy framework is as holistic as possible. At the same time, the policy will look at limiting screen time for, in particular, very young children. While this may sound oxymoronic, it's important to note that numerous studies show the negative impact of exposing children to screens at a very young age for prolonged periods of time. This is an important distinction to make. Screen time is not inherently bad. Unsupervised and constant screen time without the inclusion of physical movement and play is. When we look at STEAM education, I've said before that it is not about the devices or the screens. STEAM actually requires a focus on developing and applying fine motor skills towards new methodologies of learning. So the work of the Ministry of ECYS is therefore not to police AI in STEAM. It is about managing it through guidance, using international standards that take healthy approaches towards the use and incorporation of technology into educational spaces. As stakeholder consultations continue and conclude, the Division of Education Innovation will provide updates to the public on the policy's progress. If we look at personnel and capacity building, Madam Chair Lady, personnel costs increased by approximately 5.5% to $31.45 million, primarily due to indexation, but additionally with budget allocation for critical vacancies. The ministry, like most, currently has 347 positions possible, of which 281 are filled, resulting in an overall occupancy rate of 81%. Strengthening staffing capacity remains essential for effective implementation of reforms and service delivery. To support this capacity building initiative, the ministry has engaged an HR consultant to focus on critical vacancies and pending personnel matters. As you can see, Madam Chair, the allocation of our budget, our composition, 25% of the ministry's budget is allocated to personnel costs and 75% is dedicated to material costs, with the largest expenditure remaining education subsidies, projects and activities, school transportation, and scholarships. The ministry is not without risks, as others have pointed out. Some of the key challenges facing ECYS are staffing shortages, including recruitment of public education teachers, budgetary pressures within youth and sports, and inflationary impacts on reconstruction projects and procurement in, for example, public education. To mitigate these risks, the ministry will continue strengthening monitoring and evaluation systems, implement performance management frameworks, and improve financial planning and oversight. I just wanted to touch on some major projects within ECYS, first starting with the St. Martin Trust Fund. ECYS has several projects related to the St. Martin Trust Fund, and over the last year and a half, considerable progress has been booked on these projects, in particular those related to construction. I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank Division Head of Education Innovation, Ms. Aurelie Boyrad, as our trust fund focal point, and all those within the ministry who have collaborated on these projects for their work in bringing them this far. The projects under the trust fund fall under two programs, ERP1 and FRLP. Under ERP1, which originally addressed classroom repair at our schools, it will now move into repairing and upgrading physical education spaces. That includes the demolition of MPC's old gym and the construction of its replacement gym, the reconstruction of Sundial's gym, Prince William Alexander's gym being reconstructed, the Asha Stevens Hillside Christian School gym, Helmick Snyder's Hillside Christian School, the Seventh-day Adventist School, St. Martin Academy, Academy VBC, Sister Martha Primary School, Sister Regina, and the MAC BFM campus. For sports and community facilities that are going to be repaired under this program, we have the K-Bay District Sport Court, Cole Bay, Simpson Bay, the Rupert Maynard Community Center Sport Court, South Reward District Sport Court, as well as the Phillipsburg Cultural Center, John Lamini Center, the Johan Cruyff Sports Court and Stadium, Melford Hazel Sports Facility, and John Cooper Jose Lake Ballpark. The full scope of work should be completed by September-October 2027. However, we will see deliveries of mainly the community basketball courts already from October onwards. Under FRLP, we have the St. Martin Library, with mobilization to begin with in the coming weeks, the Sister Marie Laurence Primary School, foundation slab placement being completed and then upwards mobility coming thereafter, Charles Leopold Bell School approaching the finalization of its tender results, the Ministry Management Information System with UI and UX designs currently being discussed with ministry stakeholders, and the Teacher Web Training Platform, which is now in the process of planning a testing session with teachers across public and subsidized education. TWO projects funded within the ministry were initially grounded in a comprehensive assessment of the education system as a whole. This assessment identified key challenges and resulted in a set of recommendations. These were then used to define priority areas and develop specific projects. These projects include, among others, the modernization of crucial legislation within MECIS, such as the Higher Education Ordinance, the National Decree on Study Financing, the National Decrees for Higher Education Funding and Accreditation, the building of a reliable and sustainable data registration system, MMIS, and relevant reforms on pre-primary, early childhood curriculum, primary FBE curriculum, and vocational education.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
Minister of Finance Marinka Gums is driven primarily by wage tax and turnover tax collections, reflecting continued economic growth and increased economic activity. It also reflects the Ministry of Finance's ongoing efforts to strengthen compliance, modernize tax administration, and improve revenue collection. Our objective remains clear: to ensure that everyone contributes fairly and that the tax burden is shared equitably across. Minister explained in the House of Parliament 2025-2026 budget.
Projected growth in tax revenues is driven primarily by wage tax and turnover tax collections, reflecting continued economic growth and increased economic activity. It also reflects the ongoing efforts of the Ministry of Finance to strengthen compliance, modernize tax administration, and improve revenue collection. Our objective remains clear: to ensure that everyone contributes fairly and that the tax burden is shared equitably across society. Other revenues are projected at $91 million and include approximately $69 million in project grants from TWO, BZK, and the Trust Fund. While these grants play an important role in supporting critical projects and reforms, it is important to recognize that they are project-specific and temporary in nature. As such, they should not be considered structural or recurring sources of revenue. This is reflected in the projections for 2027, where a decline in other revenues is anticipated. This decrease is primarily due to the uncertainty surrounding the continuation of programs such as the TWO, including whether the program will be extended, and if so, to what extent. Revenue from licenses is projected at $16 million compared to $24 million in 2025 budget. This decrease is primarily attributable to lower anticipated application volumes. We also see in the preliminary figures of 2025 that the revenue for licenses is anticipated to be $15 million. Based on this, the 2026 amount has also been adjusted. Meanwhile, fees and concessions remain relatively stable and are expected to contribute approximately $62 million to government revenues. Overall, the 2026 budget reflects a stable and prudent financial outlook. It demonstrates that St. Martin continues to move in the right direction with growing revenues, controlled expenditures, and a positive budget balance. More importantly, it reflects our commitment to maintaining sound public finances while continuing to invest in the priorities that matter most to the people of St. Martin. Madam Chair, turning now to expenditures. Total budgeted expenditures for 2026 amount to $636 million, representing an increase of approximately $59 million compared to the $577 million budgeted for 2025. This increase, is driven primarily by two factors. The first is personnel costs, which increased by approximately $21 million. This reflects the government's continued efforts to strengthen the public service by filling long vacant positions across various ministries and departments. It also includes a 2.5% salary indexation, as explained previously, and the addition of personnel connected to projects financed through the TWO and the Trust Fund. These investments are intended to improve the government's capacity to deliver service, execute projects, and meet the growing demands of our community. The second major driver is spending on goods and services, which increases by approximately $39 million. The majority of this increase is directly linked to activities financed through the TWO program and other externally funded projects. It is important to note that these expenditures are accompanied by corresponding revenues and therefore do not place additional pressure on the country's budget balance. Besides these two primary drivers, we also have some small decreases in, for example, subsidies. Furthermore, these expenditures should largely be viewed as temporary in nature. Based on the current planning, the TWO program is scheduled to conclude during the first quarter of 2027, at which point many of these associated expenditures are expected to decline significantly. While discussions are ongoing regarding a possible extension of the program, no such extension has been incorporated into the 2026 budget, ensuring that the figures presented remain prudent and realistic. When compared to the preliminary figures of 2025 of $545 million, expenditures show an increase of approximately $92 million. The differences are largely driven by the same expenditure categories, particularly personnel costs and project-related expenses. Recruitment remains a key challenge across all ministries, as attracting and retaining qualified personnel continues to be difficult. Despite these challenges, the government remains actively engaged in efforts to fill critical vacancies in order to safeguard the continuity and quality of public services. Outside of these categories, expenditures remain relatively stable and do not reflect any significant increases. However, there is one area that requires our continued attention, namely interest expenses. While current interest costs remain manageable, they are expected to increase over time as existing debt obligations are refinanced and as the government seeks financing for critical investments and development priorities. Madam Chair, fiscal discipline is not only about balancing today's budget, it is also about making strategic decisions that protect future generations from unsustainable debt burdens while creating opportunities for sustainable growth and resilience. As such, this government remains committed to prudent borrowing, responsible expenditure management, and safeguarding the long-term financial health of St. Martin.
As Parliament prepares to vote on the National Budget 2026, Minister of Finance Marinka Gums says approval of the budget will allow government to move forward with several important commitments to the people of St. Martin, including the long-awaited cost of living adjustment for civil servants. One of the important provisions in Budget 2026 is the 2.5% indexation for civil servants, retroactive to January 2026. The budget also provides funding to fill critical vacant positions throughout government. Our civil servants have been waiting for this adjustment, and I understand what it means to them and their families, especially at a time when the cost of living continues to be a concern, Minister Gums said. Once the budget is approved, government can move forward with the process to have this adjustment paid. Budget 2026 projects approximately CG 647 million in revenue and CG 636 million in operating expenditures, while providing CG 163 million in capital investments aimed at improving infrastructure, public services, and national development. The budget also provides significant funding for education, healthcare, and social development, justice, infrastructure, economic development, and the continued modernization of government. For the Ministry of Finance, work will continue on modernizing the tax administration, strengthening financial management and controls, improving tax compliance, and making government's financial systems more efficient and accountable. Budget 2026 also marks an important change in the way government prepares its budget. For the first time, government has introduced a policy-based budgeting approach, which seeks to better connect the money being spent with government's policies, priorities, and measurable results. Minister Gums again acknowledged that Budget 2026 came later than it should have. I have never tried to make excuses for the delay. We must do better, and we are doing better. The lessons learned from the 2026 process have already been applied to Budget 2027, the minister stated. She emphasized that Budget 2026 should not be presented as a perfect budget or as one that will solve every challenge facing St. Martin. There is still a lot of work to be done. We will not get everything right overnight. What is important is that we continue to improve, remain accountable, and keep working in the interest of the people. Minister Gums also expressed appreciation to members of Parliament for their questions, concerns, and recommendations during the budget debate, as well as to her colleague ministers and the civil servants across government who contributed to preparing the budget. Whether coalition or opposition, Parliament has an important responsibility to question government and hold us accountable. We may not always agree, but at the end of the day, we all serve the same people and the same St. Martin. The minister said the vote on Budget 2026 is ultimately about allowing government to move from planning and debate to execution. For our civil servants, it means moving forward with their retroactive 2.5% adjustment. For government departments, it means filling critical vacancies. For the country, it means moving forward with investments and programs that have been budgeted for. I respectfully look forward to Parliament's decision. Budget 2026 represents an important step forward for our civil servants, our government, and our country. There is still much work ahead, but with accountability, cooperation, and a shared commitment to St. Martin, we can continue building on the progress we have made. Minister Gums concluded, "My commitment has always been, and will continue to be, to the people of St. Martin. The decisions we make today must improve the lives of our people, create opportunities for our young people, provide greater security for our families, and strengthen the future of our country. I understand that people are looking to government not only for plans and promises, but for results. That is why I will continue to stand up for the interests of the people, remain accountable for the work entrusted to me, and do my part to ensure that we turn our plans into action. St. Martin deserves progress, opportunity, and a government that continues working for its people. Let us continue moving forward together."
Now the local weather forecast today through Friday midday. Fair to partly cloudy. Isolated showers are likely. Surface winds this afternoon through Friday midday. Easterly to east-southeasterly with a light to moderate breeze at 6 to 14 p.m. Sea conditions, sheltered areas, open waters. State, smooth to slight waves, swells up to 2 to 4. Outlook through Saturday midday. Variably cloudy with light haze and isolated showers. And now, 3 days weather forecast.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurance.
Construction has officially commenced for the new Point Blanche Correctional Facility, marking a significant step forward under the Detention Sector Reform Program, DSRP. With active construction activities underway, the Ministry of Justice and United Nations Office for Project Services, UNOPS, are advising residents and motorists of the Point Blanche community to exercise increased caution when traveling along Mountain Dove Road. As construction logistics, heavy machinery, and transport vehicles begin moving to and from the construction site, project partners are prioritizing public safety and working to minimize neighborhood disruptions. The contractor is actively collaborating with all relevant parties to design a comprehensive traffic management plan that will take all of these factors into consideration. In the meantime, the project partners sincerely request the cooperation, patience, and understanding of all residents and motorists. The Ministry of Justice and its implementing partner, UNOPS, will continue to keep the public informed as construction advances. This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.